Well, welcome, my friends. I am here with Bev Crocker. She's the Executive Director of the Business Ethics Alliance, and Eve McLean, the Director of Education. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
So much going on in the world right now, but the Business Ethics Alliance, I just want to talk about that and who do you serve? So Bev, I'm going to let you just take that away.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Andy. Love being here. The Business Ethics Alliance is a unique organization across the nation and the world, and we serve our business community. And by that, I mean any kind of organization in the Omaha community, small, medium, and large, for-profit and not-for-profit. We deliver practical, positive business ethics education because we believe in capitalism. We believe that making money is a good thing, but we think that we should do it with integrity and honor and fair deals. And we're lucky to have incredible leaders in the Omaha community that came together more than 15 years ago to say, hey, let's make sure that we remember this and that we pass it on to future generations. And so the Business Ethics Alliance does education in the community as well as delivering products and services within organizations in Omaha.
Yeah, and you're not just the Executive Director, you're also the CEO, correct? I mean,
Yeah.
you have that title, so I didn't want to just take that away from you. So let's just talk a little bit. When did the Business Ethics Alliance start?
Yeah, it was about 15 years ago. It's a four-legged stool. So it's a relationship between the Hyder College of Business, where I happen to be an endowed chair in Hyder, and then the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce, the Better Business Bureau here in the Heartland, and then the Omaha business leaders came together to say exactly what I had described, that it really makes sense that we make sure that we do business the Omaha way.
Yeah.
We ensure that our hearts are in it and we're taking care of future generations. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, I've been a part of it. What you ask for the business community is to become trustees, or that's how they can support you. So I've been involved in that in a long way, but talk a little bit about that just for the businesses out there that maybe potentially are not, and how do they become that?
Oh, thanks, Andy. Yeah. Trustees are like our guild. So we're not a membership organization. We are a 501c3. And so as trustees, and we have about 350 who stand tall, being ambassadors, supporters, and counselors for the Business Ethics Alliance. And you're listed in our annual report as well as on our website. And it's really interesting how it's become a list of who's who in Omaha. And if your name isn't on that list, it's like, what's the matter with that?
Yes.
And so, you, as well as other trustees, really drive the conversations that we have around doing business the right way.
Yeah. So we're going to dive into a topic that I just loved when I saw this: selling and fundraising during a pandemic. But I just want to talk about a couple of events that you have coming up that are going virtual, or they've been rescheduled. Let's just talk about that for just a second.
Yeah. And if I could be the one to transfer the conversation to Eve McLean, our
Absolutely.
Director, because Eve is going to be in charge of those. So Eve, what do you say?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yep. So we have a summer luncheon that was usually scheduled for the May timeframe that we've put into June, and that is going virtual. We have an awesome speaker around the topic of medical ethicists, medical ethics, and what can we expect in this arena as we move forward amidst the COVID-19 space. In addition to that, earlier in the year, we took our Mind Candy Dialogue virtual. We had a great reception. We met online using Zoom, and we had over 120 people that not only attended, but hung on through the entire 90-minute conversation, where we talked about the different things that companies are facing and different trials and tribulations and ethical dilemmas that they're facing amidst COVID-19.
Yeah. So let's just dive into the topic that really caught my eye about a week or two ago. You sent out your e-newsletter, and one of the topics was selling and fundraising during a pandemic. And I was I've been feeling that. I mean, that's part of what I do. I own a magazine. I have a publishing company, but it hasn't felt right to approach people to buy. So I kind of want to go through, the first question. And before I get to that, you and Bev were actually talking about this, and this is kind of how this whole article came to be. So just say a little bit about that.
That's exactly right. So Bev is not only ethics personified, she is a businesswoman, right? So at the beginning of the pandemic, as we were preparing to go into our Mind Candy dialogue, we sent out a questionnaire to our constituents and we said, what are you facing? What's going on? And they responded, and they responded beautifully. And one of the things that they brought up was this idea of financial vitality. There's so many questions they raised around how does it look like I'm profiteering off of this? If I'm selling, what happens if I want to have people donate some supplies, but then I want to sell some things? All these questions around how do I ethically make money in this space?
Yeah.
And one of the questions they asked was really around fundraising and selling. Is it ethical to fundraise and sell?
Yeah.
And so Dr. Bev and I got into a very interesting conversation around this, and it raised all sorts of interesting thoughts. And we were able to look out there and see a little bit about what the economists were saying. But, Dr. Bev has been adamant all along that the concept of business has to survive, and the economists back her up. The economy has to survive.
Yeah.
Now, we're realistic. It doesn't mean that every business is going to make it through to the other side. So we need to make sure that we walk through this in a way that we feel that we can hold our heads high, and in a way that we can be proud of the way that we're behaving through this, so that when we're after this, we're happy with what we've done.
So I'm going to kind of dive in through a few of these questions. So many of the companies that you've spoken to with recently are experiencing stress around money right now, and what is ethical in the face of financial strain. So let's just talk about what they're struggling with. One, people are trying to rapidly reimagine their businesses to make money during and after the pandemic.
Right.
And how are you as the Business Ethics Alliance, how are you helping them? Are they turning to you? Talk about that a little bit.
Yep, absolutely. So this reimagining is really at its base. We're talking about how do we position ourselves so that we can still be relevant during this time. So if what we do is not to Maslow's base hierarchy of needs, if you look at what many people are buying right now, it's around those basic 2 layers of Maslow. So if you're not in those basic 2 layers, how are you still relevant, and why are people going to buy from you? So that's really the question when we look at reimagining a business. And our place in that is to say, you have some decisions to make while you're trying to decide how to position yourself. So we've offered 2 tips around that. Number 1 is about transparency. Be upfront with people and tell them your intentions, whatever it may be. Be upfront and be open, because the people that you're dealing with, your audience, they're adults,
yeah,
and they understand business. So if you can't be super relevant right now and you found a way to be relevant, AKA I'm going to make hand sanitizer, but I'd like to use some donated goods and I'd like to sell some, just tell people. When we actually put that out with our audience, they supported that as long as they knew going in. So
right.
Number 1 is be transparent. And then number 2 is Dr. Bev's ethical decision-making model, which I won't go into depth here, but it's about putting an ethical lens on the questions you're asking yourselves as you try to come up with a decision of how I reposition myself, so that, again, you can keep that reputation in mind.
Yeah. And Eve, I'm just going to say one thing. We're doing Zoom. This is all kind of new to all of us. I'm in my house, you're in your house. But Eve, you're looking at a computer. Can you look at the camera? There you go.
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do
I need to repeat everything I just said?
I just wanted to move your eye focus to the camera that's looking at you. So
perfect.
So let's talk a little bit. We're kind of. I'm in the fundraising and in the nonprofit world. Let's just talk about that nonprofit world, and also people. How do you ask for funds, and how do you? And people do want to make a difference right now. I think honestly, more so than ever, whatever they can do, whether it's financially or whether it's filling grocery sacks with food, It's an interesting time because everybody is looking for ways to get involved. But let's talk about the whole fundraising component and how, what do you have to say about that?
So here's what I'll say. We have to position ourselves again in that relevancy space. And sometimes we're going to have to be a little bit more vulnerable right now. So for example, if our businesses are to survive after this, it means that we might need support through this. And we've seen the government stepping into this space quite a bit, right? The government is trying to put out PPP loans and other things to help sustain us. But for some people, that's not going to be enough. So we may have to go hat in hand and actually say to the community, we know we might not be top of mind right now, but if you love what we're doing and you'd like us to survive after this, we need your support through this. And I think being vulnerable and being open and being transparent is going to allow people to make a decision because they have limited funds right now. They are scared right now. So they have to decide who they're going to support through this while also trying to support their own self-interest. So I think it's just really important right now that we're not manipulative because we're scared too. We have to be open, we have to be transparent, and we have to be vulnerable and tell people this is what we're trying to do and this is what we think we need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's just, honestly, we've never seen anything like this before. And we're going to be a different world. We're going to be a different community. You can't even say when we come out of this, because I don't know if coming out, if that's even the word to say, because normal is not normal. And I think there's a lot of good things that will be happening with this, but really, how do we support the nonprofits and the business and also not get to a place as a business owner where you're freaking out and you just feel like you can't, you don't know what to do. So,
right.
Go for it.
Well, I was going to say, this is where I'm going to put that reputation hat on. And I'm going to talk about, many of us have built our businesses. The larger businesses have articulated things and they've called them values, right? So they have a mission and a values. Sometimes smaller companies don't have the time to create that. But the point is without those words, you have done actions all along that represent your values. And our key is when we get into an amygdala hijack, when we get under stress like this, our decision-making capabilities can become taxed. Yeah. And sometimes we do things that we wouldn't normally do. So what I'm saying here is we need to remember who we are so that when we're on the other side, I'm going to use the other side with you, whatever that looks like, if that may be years from now, I don't know what that is. But we want to know that every step of the way, we're able to hold our head high and that we acted in a way that is congruent with who we are inside and who we want our companies to be manifested on the outside. So it's going to be super critical that we are cautious and we hold ourselves accountable to that.
Yeah. And we have just a few minutes left. So we talked about leverage transparency. Again, I love this article. Think through your choices. Use the far, wide, and high framework. Talk about that quickly.
We have an absolute expert on this. I'm actually going to pivot this back to Dr. Bev because this is her brainchild. So Dr. Bev, can you tell us a little bit about far, wide, and high?
Yeah, thanks, Eve and Andy. So it's the idea that when you're trying to make an ethical decision, what we often do is forget to ask all the right questions. And so this model of far, wide, and high, and by the way, Andy, I don't know if you know, I used to be a drill team in high school.
I did not know that.
Wide and high, do this with me, far, wide, and high. It just reminds you to ask those three kinds of questions, and when you do, you have a better chance of making a decision. The far questions are, what are the consequences for me, for everybody else, not only short-term but long-term? Wide, what are the obligations in the situation? What are the rights and the duties and what's fair? And then high is something that Eve has been talking about a lot, the reputation. What do I want to be remembered for? Myself as well as my organization. And so take any of the COVID situations that are happening line. Take the question about who's going to pay for the masks that employees have to wear when they're working in their organizations. What's the right thing to do as an employer? What's the long-term consequences of us paying as opposed to the employees? What kind of obligation do I have? What kind of rights do the employees have? What's fair? And what kind of reputation do I want to have? What do I want to be remembered for? The organization as well. If you ask those kinds of questions, you have a really good chance of making the right.
Yeah, those are great questions. And I appreciate you both so much for coming on here. And Bev, you've done such important work, and I know you're not going anywhere. You're going to be involved, but thank you for your vision with all of this. It's served our community so well. And I just want to ask, so how can we learn more about you? And again, I am going to come back in a month or so and have another conversation, but how can people connect with you?
I'd like to say two things. One is, Andy, thank you, because as a trustee, you and other trustees and the rest of the community makes this happen. It's a community initiative. Thank you for caring. Number two, go to our website, businessethics.alliance.org. You can find out everything about us on our website.
Yeah. All right, Bev, Eve, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you soon, Eve, in the next month or so. Thanks, lady.